Marlon, thank you so much for joining me. 10, 15 minutes of your time is all I really need and want. I know you're a very, very busy individual, and I've been fascinated with your work and your past. I hope you're doing well, especially obviously with the way that things ended last season for you all during this new set of playoffs, or I guess this new format that you're all embarking on. How have you been since? How is the team holding up? I know you guys are still practicing.
Yeah, we're still going strong. One of the things that we value is the fact that we are still in what we consider to be like the development sector, despite being a professional team. And so there's still teaching going on, there's still learning going on, and training and friendlies and those kind of things here as we head into the holidays. So it's been busy, believe it or not, still for us. We've played a few more games since the end of the season. It was um, I don't want to say a tough finish, but we made a great run to make it into the playoffs, and unfortunately lost to New England. And we're hoping our first team will redeem us a little bit here over the next 10 hours or so, and finish the business. But we've been busy and continuing to work with our kids.
That's awesome. And no, much like you, I think a lot of people, including in the press, are really excited to see what happens tonight and hopefully something positive. And that's the fan in me coming out and saying it out loud. So now I'm putting my press hat back on. I must admit, Marlon, a lot of connections that I wasn't aware of as I was learning more about you. And obviously, I've known about you joining the Philadelphia Union too, credentials of yours in terms of your time at Penn State, West Virginia. Whether you realize it or not, you actually recruited one of my students when I was at Mercersburg Academy. I was an assistant head coach, which was Sam Morgan, who is now at Babson, I think, and doing well. So I was really eager to kind of connect with you and talk more, because I find it fascinating that not that you weren't deserving, that's not what I'm saying, but the shift of going from a collegiate coach to now doing this with a set roster that sure rotates, but doesn't rotate, I'm sure, nearly as much as the collegiate game. I don't know if you can kind of talk more about that, because the collegiate game is really building relationships on a yearly basis, if not, looking 3 years ahead onto who can be next man up or who's going to evolve and advance in the coming years.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess the soccer world really is truly a small world with those kind of connections, right? And yeah, it's been a whirlwind journey to get to where I am now, to being here with the Philadelphia Union, and working through the collegiate ranks. And I think, just ironically enough, at the time that this opportunity was open, there were two players who had played 4 years for me at West Virginia University that were starting for the Philadelphia Union's first team, in Ray Gaddis and Jack Elliott. And so there were some connections there already. Obviously, it's pretty well documented. My son was in the academy at the time here as well. And so that soccer world was really even smaller when you think about it, right? But going from the collegiate game here to Philadelphia Union too, I think it's been interesting. It's been an evolution of sorts, because the team was originally in the USL Championship when I first got here. And then we kind of took a step backward, but not a step backwards, but a step back to basically reevaluate how we wanted our development pathway to look, and really what the priorities were for the club. And this was off the heels of Mark McKenzie and Brendan Aronson being sold for multi-million dollars, to European clubs. And essentially, I've been on the ground floor now of this evolution of MLS Next Pro, this transition of bringing our young players through, and having the opportunity to work with the Jack McGlynn's and Nate Harrells, the Quinn Sullivans, Paxton Aronsons, those guys who have now matriculated into the first team, and in Paxton's case beyond, and trying to do the same for what the future of this club is going to look like moving forward with the younger guys coming through. So the roster kind of composition changes over and over and over and over again. It's one of the challenges of having a project like what we have here at the Union, which prioritizes development over results, and really we don't ever try to lose sight of that. And perhaps people kind of look at our results and make their evaluation based on what they see in terms of wins and losses. But I think for us, it's more it's far more particular. It's more about the individual. It's more about who's going to be the next, Brendan, Mark, Jack McGlynn, so on and so forth. And that's the task at hand. And I think we've been blessed and fortunate that we've gotten results and made playoffs with this crazy roster composition that we take on. But that relationship building that you mentioned is just as important with these younger guys, really, that we have in our second team, even more so than the relationship building that you do in the college game. So it's a process, but it's certainly one that we find different ways to be fulfilled by.
So you set the stage perfectly, and we're going to touch on a lot of the names that you mentioned, and really even the process as you just finished with. In your conversation with the Cooligans about a year ago, while you guys were at the eSport Lounge with all the fancy lights and everything going on there, and the really interesting setup that they had for you, you had mentioned the difficulties of preparing and scouting teams as well as preparing your own. And something that really caught my eye, ear, whatever. You said, we are at a club where we don't care what other people think. We are going to do it our way. Has that philosophy changed? And now, a year removed from that interview, how has this approach helped you as a coach?
Great question. I think the first answer in the first question is no. If you see the way Ernst Tanner has, kind of built this club and built this team, and we do it our way, and we do it on without any shame. And I think that when you're in the business of development like we are, certainly outwardly, no one wants to hear that we don't care about winning and losing. I've been told to kind of maybe sometimes mute that a little bit, not necessarily from our club, but from those at the league. We want this next pro to be viable and in a winning league and a proven development for winners. And I think it's not that we don't value winning. We 100% value winning. We don't want to win or make decisions based on winning that trump the development. And we certainly believe that if we develop properly, we're going to win also. And I think that's certainly happened for us in those regards. So we don't care what people think. We do it our way. It's one of our pillars is to build from within, and we're not going to stray from that whatsoever. Repeat for me the second part of your question, Jose.
Of course. The second part was, it sounds like it hasn't, but it hasn't changed, but now a year removed, has this approach helped you as a coach? I'm guessing so.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, I came from an environment where I coached to win, to an environment where that certainly, it's not what I'm mandated to do. So I have probably learned to be a far more empathetic coach in terms of allowing guys to, I don't want to say fail, but that's probably is the best way to do it. It's putting them out there and allow them to fail and giving them experiences that they can learn from without the pressure of feeling like they're going to get pulled out of a game necessarily, or they may not get another match after that. When you have a 15-year-old like Neil Pierre starting against a 25-year-old, center forward, there's probably going to be more moments of struggle than there are going to be of success, and learning how to really, for myself as a coach, have the faith and understanding that we're going to do this, and not so much worry about if Neil's going to be prepared to be able to handle the rigors of playing against somebody 10 years a senior, but more so focusing on how I can help Neil be better and meet that challenge and grow to be successful in that challenge. Not necessarily today, but the next time, and a year down the line, and 2 years and 5 years down the line, and build a better overall footballer that's going to take these experiences and hopefully and grow exponentially far beyond my time with them.
You are unbelievable at creating transitions for me without even planning it. So I appreciate that. You mentioned the word empathy, faith, understanding, and development, growth. How do you teach patience to these players, right? Typically, the Union 2 being a younger group, how do you teach that when they see and witness, and some of them even shared fields with the likes of the Mbizos, the McGlynn's, the Trustees, McKenzie's, the brothers, the Aaronsons, even someone who I spoke with on Tuesday, Jesus Bueno. How do you teach that, and is delivering that message difficult? Because I would hope that as professional footballers, the appetite's there, the hunger's there, but it's also slow down, trust the process. How do you do that?
Yeah, it almost seems cliche to say that, right? But certainly it is. I think there's a couple things that come to mind when you ask that question. It's, you know, I think first and foremost for me to be able to take a step back and understand what the bigger picture is a pretty humbling thing to do. I've certainly probably taken more licks than I would care to take as a coach, by trusting the process and having faith in the young player, and kind of growing. Our results aren't always there, and that's, can be hard for my own ego to lose a game and to kind of deal with that dissatisfaction of maybe not playing as well as you think you can play, because your team is 4 or 5 years on average younger than your opponent. But trusting the process goes a long way for me, and so that part has certainly been humbling. I think the other way that I'm able to empathize with it is that, I've got my own son in this academy, and he's been here now for like 4 or 5 years. And so seeing the pathway, understanding that it's not an immediate, satisfaction grab for anybody. There is going to be ups and downs on the journey. And I think one of the things that we try to work with our guys and have them understand is, this is a journey, it is a process, and you have to buy into the process. And eventually, the reward will come from the everyday, not just making it to the first team and getting a contract. All that said, it's easy for me to paint that picture for these guys when they see so many guys coming through and getting there. But when my first year getting to work with those names, the Brandon Craigs I can throw in there. Mm-hmm. Nelson Pierre has now made it. Chris Donovan has made it from a different pathway. There are so many guys that have come in from the academy. Andy Rick is now, come through the academy and made it here and is doing so well. So there's so many examples of fantastic successes. And we try to also paint the picture for the guys that, look at the ones that have come in our environment and thrive. Luciano Sanchez is over at Rutgers right now, and he was like young player of the week and MLS Next Pro like 3 or 4 times this season. It was incredible. And these guys will all have a different journey. It's not always going to end up being a Philadelphia Union first team player. But I think what we've done a really good job is convincing them that there's so much satisfaction that can come from the day-to-day of this journey, that if you find more than just being a first team player, if you find other rewards that aren't just associated with signing a final contract, I think you'll enjoy the process a little bit more. And I think we've got these guys bought into enjoying the process a little bit more than just the destination.
So in terms of you enjoying the process, when you see a player move to the next level or make the jump to the first team or receive a national call up, what does that make you feel? And I'm sure maybe a fatherly feeling in a way, right?
Yeah, sure. I think if you were to ask me 10 years ago, like, what's your vision of a successful season? And it's probably something where your captains are lifting a trophy under confetti and enjoying that incredible moment. That's still something that, you want, and that doesn't go away. But now there's other pictures that kind of get associated with what's also success. And, it's one of these jobs, being a second team coach, that doesn't necessarily get a whole lot of spotlight and isn't always understood. But watching these young guys ascend to make it, whether it's signing a college scholarship or signing a first team contract and holding their first jersey up on their signing day, that is my trophy celebration moment, and I know I'm just a stop along the journey, and this club, this team is just a stop along their journey. And many of these guys, and let me don't overstate my influence. These kids are incredibly talented. And sometimes I like to joke that they make it in spite of me. But I'm honestly really privileged that I get to work with these young, incredible talents and be at least a spoke in the wheel of this process of them getting there. And I still keep in contact with Paxton. I still see Jack and Nate Harrell and these guys, and have great conversations and discussions with them. Ray Gaddis still talks to me and gives me a ring, and he's just had his first child, and that having an influence in their life has been just as much of a reward as getting to do the trophy celebrations as well.
Do you give Ray a little shit for wearing orange and blue now?
I don't give Ray any grief over an FC Cincinnati guy. There's plenty of Union players there that others can give shit.
Yeah.
And management and staff. Right. But yeah, Ray is the one I've probably known the longest. That's still kind of out there and doing it. And what a great guy. And so I'm super happy for him that he's been able to go to another club and lift another trophy. And he's just had, like I said, he just had his first child, and it's incredible to think. I think it was a sophomore or junior in high school when I did a home visit to try and recruit him and to see where he is now.
So going back to the initial question, not giving grief to Mr. Gaddis, but on the other hand, obviously we talked about the success stories and the good times, but when you see a player go through a difficult time, let's say, and I remember asking Jim just a couple of weeks ago, his opinion and assessment of a loan spell that maybe did not go as well in terms of a name you dropped, Brendan Craig. Is there, again, the fatherly feeling within you to say, man, like this is very tough for him? Or what do you feel when you see Brendan go through something like this?
Yeah, I think it's always hard because you want guys to go and to be successful, and it's a blip for Brandon. Brandon is a fantastically talented young player, and this was he's going through a period right now where he's going to have to fight. And I think when I've spoken to Brandon, I saw Brandon just a couple of days ago. My son plays with Andrew, his younger brother, on the U17s. Brandon is a guy who I vouched for with under 20s, and Mikey Barras, we did our pro licenses together before he went to the World Cup, and he brought Brandon in. I think Brandon's future is still very, very bright. And sometimes, again, it's like you talk about that in the moment, gratification of getting there as fast as you can. Everyone's journey isn't going to be the same. And I think Brandon is still going to get there. He's just going through a different period of how he's going to. So Austin was tough for him. I think at the end of the day, he's still standing, and he's going to have a massive growth from this experience, and one that now, when challenges come later on in life, he's going to know how to deal with. I think if you don't have these challenges and it just seems too easy, it's probably not going to be long lasting. And I think there's got to find a way to see the positive. I think I've told Brandon that. I know he knows that. I asked him what's next. He said, I don't know, but he said it with a way that was like, I'm ready. So I think he's looking forward to kind of moving past that and moving on to what comes next.
In terms of collaboration with Jim and Ernst, I almost mixed both of them together into one, which, the way that they collaborate together, as I'm learning more and more, you could more or less just, merge the two names together with how closely they work. What does your weekly process of collaboration with them look like, and what does it look like for long term and maybe even extended goals? Because I think that's really something that's interesting for folks who tend to pay more attention to the senior team per se. I'm going to use that term. I'm not demeaning Union 2, but with the senior team, obviously the attention's focused there. But what does the collaboration or the trickle down effect, what does that look like in terms with Jim and Ernst and you?
Yeah, it's highly collaborative, and Jim is involved in the process and so is Ernst, even when it's the second team guys. And so, for example, during the international break, when they're losing 6, 7, 8 guys, there are second team guys coming in to fulfill the training requirements needed for the first team to continue on that playoff run. When Jeremy Raffanello or Quinn Sullivan need a game, Jim, Ernst are involved. The performance team is involved in terms of making sure that we've got the physical data for everything that they've done prior to joining us, and everything going back in now after being with us. The medical staff is connected as far as that's concerned. It really is. I don't want to say it's a finely tuned machine. There are late roster decisions and moves and everything else that you can imagine that goes along with it, but the same relationship that Jim and Ernst have working together certainly funnels down to the collaboration with the second team. And I think it's all rooted in wanting to make sure that the development doesn't stop. It's all rooted in what's in the best interest of the player. And because of that, we have guys that come in from the first team and want to play games in the second team. And as a second team coach, you can't ask for anything more. Jesus Bueno last year coming in and playing games and embracing it and wanting to do it is completely different than being told, oh, you're going to go get a second team game today. And I think a lot of times the outside picture looking in is, oh, he has to play second team football. No, these guys want to play. And for me as a coach to get Jesus in and want to play, it's like, this is good. Now I can work with a guy who wants to compete. And our guys that are, busting their back every single day, have a first team guy coming in that when they put on the jersey wants to compete and wants to win. So it can be hard for our young guys to see somebody come in and take their spot on a given match day. But I think if they know that they're wanting to go out there and make the most of it, it's a little bit easier to accept. And so there were games last year where, maybe we got 6, 7, 8 guys that wanted to come in and play a match. And maybe this year it was a little bit thinner because of we did have a few more injuries in the first team this year in comparison to last year. There wasn't quite as much player movement. But, on decision day, Jeremy Raffanello was on the field with our team when it really most and celebrating. I don't know if you saw clips or video where he's just as much, screaming and happy and overjoyed to get the result as any other player. And for me as a coach to be able to have a first team that want to work and make sure that the second team is utilized in a way that benefits them and not just as, a minute grab for guys to keep them active. That's really, really great. And it all roots back to the benefits, what benefits the player the most, and making sure that we all have their best interests first and foremost.
English speaking or not English speaking, I think the ethos of the Philadelphia Union is really coming through from the senior team to the Union too. And my conversation, this is not to gas you up, Marlon, not that you need it, but in my conversation with Jesus, he really credited you in terms of the tough road, because you can listen and read interviews of top level players in Europe who detest the idea of even having to be involved with the second team, never mind a practice squad or a developmental squad, whereas someone like Jesus, who is intrigued and interested in evolving, embraced the opportunity and heck, I would say that crushed it considering what he has been able to achieve this year. And obviously we all know, and it's well documented, of his injuries getting in the way of really being at the top level internationally. But nonetheless, it's very apparent that it's being instilled in everybody, whether it's senior level or second team, Union 2, whatever you want to call it. It's really apparent. Talk to me about Jim. What have you learned from him? What has that relationship been like? You guys having lunch every other day? What has this relationship been like?
Yeah, I think their schedule this year has been insane, right? A lot of games and started way back in January. We probably haven't been able to share as much time together this year as we were prior to Leagues Cup and Champions League being thrown into our first team schedule.
My liver agrees with you, because my liver did not like Leagues Cup with everything, how often I was going into the stadium back and forth, just a
Yeah.
lot happening.
But no, I think like what you see, what I think when you watch a game on television, you look at Jim, you must think he's probably the coolest cat in the room, right? Like he's got the Nikes on, he never looks flustered, he's just always calm and composed, and certainly believe it or not, that is Jim. Like he is about as even keel of a person that I've gotten to know at this club. You'll never see him get overly emotional. Very different from maybe my sideline demeanor. Whenever a referee gets me sparked, I'm a little bit more quick to let the referee know exactly what I think. And Jim just is the ultimate gentleman. But no, he is about as easy to work with as anybody that I've gotten to work with. When it comes about roster discussion, sometimes he's, who do you want? Like it's like, what do you need? Do you want this guy, that guy? And it's like, yeah, like, and look, it's important as much as the guys like enjoy coming down and playing. They obviously want to play first team football. Like Jeremy wants to be in that stadium on Saturday night more than he wants to be in the stadium on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. And having a first team manager that is stressing the importance of him going and performing in the second team and doing well only helps me do my job better. And so having him really be willing to do that is I couldn't really emphasize how important that is. I think the other part is that Jim with me has been an open book. You want to sit in staff meetings, come sit in staff meetings, come out to training. Like he's never ever closed the door to me. So from that perspective, I'm certainly internally grateful. And this is going all the way back to my days at West Virginia. He would, anytime you want to come down and be around when Ray and Jack were here, and I just wanted to come and watch him train or spend a few days, he was open doors. And so
Wow.
Very, 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 very open and very willing to have me be included in what he's doing here. And I think, again, because he prioritizes the players, and he's a player's coach for sure. I think if you pick up on anything about Jim, he is a player's coach. He often refers to what he liked as a player, and trying to make sure that he gives his guys that from his own experiences. And I think because of that, he's really tried to make sure that I'm armed with what I need to make sure that I can do the same whenever his guys come into our environment. So for that, without a doubt, he's been absolutely fantastic.
So how long till we see you in a Prada jacket on the sidelines?
Yeah, I don't know if Prada is more my fit, but, I'm probably a little bit more hoodie or I guess I'd have to say Adidas of a guy, but I don't know what's in store for me as far as that's concerned. I think right now it's funny. If you were to ask me 10 years ago if I wanted to be a pro coach, I would have told you absolutely not. I'm really happy doing the college thing. You ask me now what my ambitions are. Sure, I'd love to have an opportunity someday to lead a first division team in this country. It is, but no different than any of my players. There's a process and a journey, and maybe there's a stop in a different league or a different club or somewhere down the line before I get that opportunity, if that's where I'm going with things. But I think right now, I'm more invested in what I'm doing here today. Tomorrow will take care of itself, and whenever it's a Prada or a journey, like that'll happen whenever it's meant to happen, if it's meant to happen.
Listen, whether it's Prada or Johnny Sweatpants, I think everybody would be eager to watch you, whether it's at Subaru Park or elsewhere. To be honest with you, I think in talking about people wanting to watch you, got in touch with that group of guys that was very, very they were very motivated to follow the team and travel with you all. The Kyle Woods of the world, the Michael Bortons of the world, who are fan names who maybe you recognize, maybe you don't, I'm not sure. But I reached out to him in terms of like, some questions, some thoughts, just to kind of, source some ideas on what to ask. And I wanted to immediately go to what I thought was, and having been a season ticket holder for quite some time and doing press for a year and a half at this point, probably maybe 2 years, Nico, I don't know. The circus that was July 28th, 2023, when Wrexham came to town. What was that day like for you as a coach? And I can only imagine, and I remember asking you this question in the press conference post-match, players who were really having a hard time handling it all in terms of like, and this is no shot at Mr. Castillo, who was very apparent, having watched many of the games, struggled with the number of people that were laying eyes on him. What was that day like, I guess, as a whole for you?
Honestly, it was all, if I were on that sideline, it almost seemed like the background was a blur. Like I think if I were younger, maybe I would be a little bit more emotional in the moment to do it, but it felt like just a regular day in the stadium for me. And that's the honest to God truth. I was more excited because we prepared no different for Wrexham, no differently than we would prepare for New England Revs too. We did our homework, we did our research, we prepared the team appropriately. Funny thing is, we got delayed a little bit because we got out even prior in Columbus, and we just won in Columbus, but our game got pushed back a day. And so we had to kind of flip the script a little bit in our weekly periodization and change the way, because our travel got delayed coming home. The game got played the day later. We lost the day of training to prepare for Wrexham, but the way we do things, we're just so used to ad-libbing and kind of switching things around that that took up a little bit of the lead time heading into it. But honestly, when we watched them play Manchester United and we watched them play LA Galaxy 2, I got to be honest, we felt like we could win the game. And so I don't think there was any time to be kind of caught up in the circus that was around it, because we were ready to go out and win the game. And there were some nerves, like you saw in Juan on that day, for sure. But I think every minute that went by, you saw our team kind of settle down a little bit more and really settled into the game. I thought it was important that I was a little bit more of a calming influence that day, and not caught up in, all the other things that were going on as well. So we treated it like it's us against the world, same way we treat everything else. And with a bunch of young teenagers that were fearless on that day, it made it easy for me to not get caught up in all the other stuff. And it was a little disappointing that storm rolled through and really kind of knocked the air out of the building a little bit, but our diehards, like you said, were still there. And I thought it was a really, really fantastic day, evening, whatever it was, whether it was for only 45 minutes to an hour, for all those people to see what those diehards came in. They come and see every week when they come and support our group. And what was a fantastic atmosphere. The kids stepped up and played fantastic and got a result when Manchester United and LA couldn't. Our did, and I thought it was just an incredible experience for everybody. But honest to God, Jose, I actually would probably need to go back and watch the game to really truly appreciate what the energy was like in that stadium. It was like the energy of a big first team match. That's how much I think the red fans in the stands were really into that game.
Yeah, they sure were. I've never seen anything like it. And maybe I should maybe go back. Maybe the last time I saw or I could hear and sense away fans outdoing home fans was when Club America came to Subaru Park a couple of years back. And obviously that was a sea of yellow. And we know the marketing motor that is that Mexican team. But I was just so happy that your guys were able to experience something like that, right? I hate to say an initial taste or a first taste, but something that should be more regular per se, right? For these guys to be able to, much like what we're saying, and I apologize to Mr. Castillo to keep bringing him up, but they can get that taste ahead of games like that, right? So once they experience it once, they know what that noise feels like, what that atmosphere feels like. So I was very happy and proud for you all to experience that and not have to experience which was again going to the circus. The was it SAG-AFTRA? The Actors Guild was outside picketing. Like it was
I didn't know that.
no, they were right outside of the team store with their banners picketing because of the whole strike that's going on or was going on. I don't even know where they stand right now, but that goes to show the amount of madness that was going on the day. Never mind the rain and everything else. As we wind down here, Marlon, I'd love to hear from you, and kind of just a sort of exit question here. You mentioned Jeremy, Chris Donovan, McGlynn, etc., and your current crew. I'm always intrigued onto their being more of an old school guy myself as a 32, 33-year-old. I still go with my, black boots every single time I go out and play. Who in that group do you think wears the best boots? Because I know Raffanello wears some that are like, dude, you need batteries for those things, bright yellow and all.
I'm the wrong guy to ask that question too, because I'm a black boot guy. And on a really, really crazy day, like if I couldn't find my black boot, I'd wear a white boot. So that's me. I have certainly passed that. Maybe it's not a good thing, but I pass that on to my own kid who wears a white boot because that's what he considers to be flashy. So I don't know if that's a good trait I've given him, but I don't even look at these kids' shoes. They're like, you could literally land a helicopter on the field. They're so bright, some of these shoes,
It's unbelievable. No, and I say that, having helped with like I said, boarding school soccer, my own adult soccer, where I see these things that are just neon yellow or like the brightest pink possible, etc. And out of curiosity,
had like the Mbappe boot on the other day, and it looks like comic book lettering on it or something like that. I said, where did you go from? But yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And Marlon, I guess I'd like to hear from you. And I asked this to Jesus, and I don't want to say off the record that we weren't recording, but it's also to me very telling on two fronts. Who is your favorite soccer player that you've modeled your play or maybe your coaching or your style on? And who do you, whether it's a player or not, who is a superhero of yours that you model your life outside of soccer around?
Oh, wow, that's an interesting question. I think, I mean, I'm old school too, right? I grew up at the essentially playing towards the end of Pelé's kind of, swan song. I remember playing in Giant Stadium with New Jersey ODP and during the Cosmos reunion game, an old Giant Stadium when it was a carpet, right? It wasn't like proper turf, and Pelé was there, and we got to walk out with him. And so I remember that as a kid. But my generation grew up where we didn't have a whole lot of soccer on TV, I'm a 70s baby. And so they weren't exactly broadcasting as much. You can turn on the TV any time of day now and you can see a player. But I think I remember I still found I've got my jersey for the Champions League.
Yes.
Right. I zipped it up just because I knew we were on camera and I had to have a union on just to cover it up. But
as I wear a Swarthmore shirt. So yeah, you're fine.
The Invincibles were my team, Czech Fabregas was a guy who I loved growing up as a footballer. I'm a huge Arsenal fan to this day. And so Golato Network and seeing Thierry Henry on TV every Tuesday and Wednesday is still like I fanboy Thierry Henry, and I might be older than him or the same age, and but absolutely love Thierry Henry as a footballer and what he brings to the table. Obviously, I work for the Philadelphia Union, and it's been hard pressed not to be a Inter Miami fan because the greatest footballer probably of all time is now playing in South Florida. And how do you not love Leo Messi and what he does and what he's been? But I've always been a super fan of like the Iniesta type players, the Javi type players, Messi. You know, love the steel of like a Patrick Vieira and the skill and the nastiness of what he would bring to the table. So for me, those are the types of players that I've always appreciated and loved. The second question is probably a little bit harder. I think I don't know if there's any one person that I kind of look at as in terms of like mentor or in terms of someone I necessarily hold, to the standard that I would like to be like or want to. There's lots of different people that I think I would point to. I've been involved in and still appreciative of people who stand for social justice. And so a lot of, people that have impacted in those forums, obviously Martin Luther King, I don't want to call him a hero, but someone I would admire. I would say, I think there are people in my life, my father-in-law, someone that I admire, my father who's passed away. And certainly it's probably a question that I would need more than just, 5 minutes to sit and think about, because I don't like to throw things out there that I don't truly believe. So I wouldn't want to just say something to you and then go, wait a minute, like I should have said something else. But for me, like, soccer is certainly a big part of my life, but I wouldn't want to call it my life. I think there are more important things for me, like being a father, a good father, and being a good husband. I've evolved in the way I approach my day and who I admire and who I would say I'd like to model my life after or be or over time. I think as I've gotten older, I'd like to think I've gotten wiser too. And my hopes is that, I can find ways to enjoy what I'm doing without just having the wins and losses or championships be the definition of whether it's been a success for me. And so I really enjoy having the impact that I have on these young guys' lives in the professional / development sector. I think I alluded to before that if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would never have wanted to be a pro coach. I think part of that was being in the university setting. It gave me an opportunity to still be relationship based without really knowing if I could be that in the professional game, having relationships with people, impacting lives. But now that I'm here and I get to do that still here and even, still have those relationships and still feel like I'm impacting those lives. And Jesus Bueno, I did not know that he told you that what he told you in terms of being able to have a positive impact. Like that for me is kind of what attracted me to being in that age bracket of the college game, and knowing now that I'm still having that type of an impact and being able to be helpful in small ways, even in the professional game is certainly great to hear, and what I think I still have is a big ambition for just myself on a personal level.
Well, I think that's fair enough, and I'll make sure maybe I'll share it with Nico to pass along to you. Tomorrow is when I'll be sharing the conversation with Jesus. So if you want to, I'll even send Nico the timestamp so you make sure to hear when he mentions his pathway and his interactions with you. You can take a listen, because I think you really do have a lot to be proud about in terms of what you do with the current batch of Union 2 players and those that have gone through the program. It's quite apparent that they certainly appreciate their time with you. And I'm not an Arsenal guy. I'm a Manchester City guy before the wealth, when Robinho, Richard Dunn, and all those guys were it. Stephen Ireland as well. Those were my guys. But I must admit, fought very, very hard with my wife to name at least one of our two kids after Cesc Fabregas, and it just didn't happen.
It's instead, really? Okay.
Instead we went with Rafael and Benicio. But for me, and I think this is where, again, somewhat of a connection. I don't often hear the Iniesta, Xavis, those type of players. But for me, David Silva, when he was at Valencia and then moved over to City, was just an unbelievable player to watch. But yeah, interesting. But for now, Marlon, thank you so much for your time. I know I mentioned a much shorter time frame, but I think the conversation was good enough, and I hope you enjoyed it. For those listening, enjoy Marlon while he's still here. Not that this is an announcement of any sort of him moving or anything like that, but it's apparent that bigger and brighter things are potentially ahead, and just enjoy him in the Union too while we're still in town. But for now, Marlon, thank you so much, and really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jose. I do appreciate you reaching out, and I also appreciate you in the comments that you made. It's like I said, we're not in the spotlight, and these kids aren't always in the spotlight, but it's nice to be recognized, and certainly the kids and the efforts that they make in the second team.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody.